Hello, YouTube. My name is Alan, and it's the time. Once again, let's talk metal. I'm excited for this episode because talking about an old favorite and a band that I do not hear come up very often in conversations online or offline or in between lines. That is Tokyo Blade, the pride of Salisbury, England. Good old Salisbury. They have excellent steak. I had one of those for dinner last night. Yeah, when the wife is not home to help with the cooking, I can get by, but gets a little lean sometimes. Anyway, don't want to get sidetracked here because Tokyo Blade has a pretty long history. I am only going to focus on the earliest part of that history for this full Tokyo Blade discography run through. That's more like a full-blown live stream kind of thing. Not sure I could find anyone else who would want to do a Tokyo Blade live stream going through the whole discography, and that's okay. We'll go through some of the early cool stuff today because I really do enjoy this band's earliest material. If you are unfamiliar with Tokyo Blade, let's start in the beginning. Two tiny amoebas come closer and closer together. No, 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 that's too early. Let's fast forward to the late 70s, early 80s British hard rock and heavy metal scene when this group of lads were working together. And the first thing to know about Tokyo Blade is they went through a lot of name changes early on. They functioned under the names White Diamond, they functioned under the name Killer, and a lot of the stuff they did around the Killer era can be found on this 2 CD set. It's a Genghis Khan Killers, so it includes a lot of, yeah, kind of, the pre-LP stuff that the band did. A lot of good music on these. The band, was getting their, chops worked out pretty early on. And so even at the demo stage, you could kind of tell they were a cut above, excuse me, losing my voice a little bit here. But yeah, this band was a cut above a lot of their contemporaries. They had a good sense of melody, good energy in their songs. They always felt to me and to some other fans like a band that really should have made it. If we're talking very, very real talk, there's only two huge bands came out of the new wave of British heavy metal. That would be Def Leppard and Iron Maiden, of course. Now, some other bands did well. It's okay, Saxon fans. I didn't forget you. Saxons had a long and solid career, yes. But, their career is not on the same par as Leopard and Maiden. It's just not. Some other bands, have stuck around and done good things over the years too. Tokyo Blade felt like the band that should have been up there with the Maiden and the Def Leppard. I read one review of their early work years and years ago. It might have been Malcolm McMillan, it might have been John Tucker, it might have been someone else. But it said that, in essence, Tokyo Blade, they were basically combining the energy and heavy metal chops of Maiden, but giving it, the melody and the mainstream appeal of Def Leppard. And so it's like, well, you put those two things together, you should have a winning combination. And sadly, it never quite worked out. But again, getting back to those early stages. So they had the name Killer. How many bands were named Killer? All right, they figured out pretty quickly that was too generic. Moved on to Genghis Khan. But, there's other bands used that name too. And there's also, you may notice too, it seems like they're almost using every name they came up with, Iron Maiden had on an album before this group ever got going. So they eventually ended up with the more unique Tokyo Blade. But in the Genghis Khan phase, they did make their first vinyl outing. And it's kind of an odd one. They did a 7-inch package called Double Dealing, shown here. And the reason it's called Double Dealing is that you got two 7-inch singles with this. So it's not just a single, it's a double single. That's not confusing at all. Hang in there, it's going to get worse. But yes, you got two separate 7-inch singles when you bought this particular item. It features 4 early tracks by the band, and that's what we're going to check out some clips of first. May do relatively short clips for some of these, because I do want to hit several Tokyo Blade clips along the way. But the first of the two singles, I call it the H single because both songs begin with H. You have If Heaven is Hell. Yes, I'm ignoring the word if. and Highway Passion on the flip side. So let's check a little bit of that single, starting with If Heaven Is Hell. And the fucking thing's not playing. There we go. All right, that clip is actually from Highway Passion. Yeah, the clips kind of got stuck there for a second, so I jumped to Highway Passion. Right away, though, it's showcasing what the band does well. Very energetic songs, good guitar work, good song structure, and yeah, just highly memorable tunes. These are ones that, yes, you could rock out to pretty well. They could also get stuck in your head pretty easily as well. All right, now let's check out the flip side of that one with a clip from If Heaven Is Hell. So yeah, more material in that same mode. Very energetic, very melodic, very catchy. A very good balance of those elements. So many bands either have to, just, bang and thrash out, but the, songs, they're going to have no mainstream appeal, may have more trouble sticking in people's minds, or they're too poppy, fluffy, catchy, and they got no heaviness to them. And Tokyo Blade, known at this phase as Genghis Khan, really could do both right. Let's continue. Let's check out a couple of clips from the second single in the double dealing pack. This is the one I call the M single because both songs begin with the letter M. First up, a clip from one of my favorites, Midnight Rendezvous. Yeah, a fantastic song. Big, I love the pre-chorus going, when I look in your eyes, it's so much colder than ice. And then straight into the chorus. Fantastic track, Midnight Rendezvous. And look, yes, I know this is not going to, appease, the gore grind and, blackened thrash fans out there, and that's okay. Nobody has to like everything within the heavy metal underground. This early stuff is worth noting, though. Without these bands, the bands you like might never have existed because this is the stuff they were listening to and getting into heavy music with when they were younger. So, yeah, it doesn't hurt to know your roots. I think somebody's already taken that line, so I won't try to copyright it. Anyway, let's wrap up the Genghis Khan double dealing pack here with a clip from Mean Streak. Yeah, so yet another really good song. So, a lot of times with these older singles, you're happy if you get one killer song and, the flip side's a throwaway. When you're very lucky, you get two good songs. With Genghis Khan's Double Dealing, you end up with four absolutely great songs all in one package. Uh, Something to note here, this artwork with the cartoon demon and the Genghis Khan logo, keep that in mind. That's going to come back. Another little thing to keep in mind, a detail to point out over here on the labels, it says, notice there's kind of a light blue text printing on, it's either a white or a very pale blue label, but you can also see it says by Genghis Khan over here on the side. That'll be important in a minute too. Like I said, Genghis Khan and Tokyo Blade get a little complicated because basically as soon as they released this, the band realized that Genghis Khan was not the nom de plume for them. So this is the point where they needed to change their name to something more unique and came up with the Tokyo Blade moniker. But you just have made this excellent, double pack of singles with the old name. Now you got a new name. What's a young band to do? Well, what you do is this. You rapidly print up new picture sleeves with the new band name logo on it, and you take the singles and start jamming them in the new picture sleeves. So, for example, here we have, look familiar. We saw this guy just a minute ago, but it said Genghis Khan down here. But now it says Tokyo Blade. This is the H single, As If Heaven Were Hell, and Highway Passion on it. But what vinyl do you put in here? You can't go back and re-record everything just because you changed your name. Well, what you do is you just take those Genghis Khan singles that are already pressed, you print new logos for your own Blade Records label, and you just slap a new center label sticker on top of the old Genghis Khan label. If you look really closely on these, and you can see it here, I do not know if it will show up on camera, but if you look very closely here, it's faint, but you can see down here below it, you still see that, by Genghis Khan print underneath, sort of, the liner notes here on the side of the label for this single. So yeah, this piece of vinyl was pressed up at the same time as this piece of vinyl. This one just got one of the new stickers put on it and put in the Tokyo Blade sleeve. The one I showed first, this is one of the early copies that had already gotten, leaked out and sent out to stores or whatever. And, they weren't able to recall them all. So some of the first batch of copies still exist with those Genghis Khan logos. The Genghis Khan double dealing pack with both singles and an original format is a very, very hard item to get, and it is not cheap. And I lucked out years ago. I literally found it on the morning of my birthday when I opened up eBay. And that was one of those things that's like, oh, honey, can I spend a bunch of money on a record? I think you literally used that voice even. And my wife, who was a sweetheart and very understanding that these things happen sometimes, was just like, fine, happy birthday. I hadn't bought you anything anyway. No, she totally had. But yes, so I'm very lucky to get the Genghis Khan double dealing. It's one of those items I never really even put on my want list because I never thought I would get a copy. But that one showed up years ago on the morning of my birthday, and it was just a flat, it was a buy it now. It wasn't cheap, but I didn't think it was outrageous either. It was in nice condition, it had the right labels, and yeah, there we go. Anyway, the band's now called Tokyo Blade. Genghis Khan, that's so 5 minutes ago. We're Tokyo Blade now. So yeah, again, this is the same single. There's no need to play clips. It's the exact same thing I just played. It just has spiffy new labels pasted onto it. Now, I don't have the M single to show. This one they just put in one picture sleeve. The other single that had Midnight Rendezvous and Mean Street on it, well, they were put in a second separate picture sleeve. It's a similar motif, but a different design. It says second cut. It has a similar cartoon demon thing, but in a different pose. And so this time they sold them as two separate singles. You didn't get them into one double pack the way you did with the Genghis Khan. So they kind of literally took that original product, split it in two, gave them new picture sleeves and new labels. I don't have the stupid M single. It is one of the last things on my want list from the new wave of British heavy metal. I've just never been able to track it down. The Tokyo Blade singles are also annoyingly hard to find. Even this one is. I got lucky and got the H single. I never have gotten the M single. And if you look on Discogs, you'll see there is a copy, but there's a problem. You see, years later in the 1990s, somebody found some of the like Genghis Khan picture sleeves, and I think some of the Tokyo Blade picture sleeves that had not been used. And so they pressed up new copies, that means bootlegs, of the singles and put those on the market. And so you will see, especially like the Tokyo Blade ones, come up from time to time. And the first question I always have to ask the sellers is like, is this the version with the plain white labels? And the answer is always yes. And that means I'm just not interested. If people have that and want to collect that version, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, really. It is an original picture sleeve, but it's not the original record. And I really want the original one to kind of, complete the set here because I really do like the songs on these quite a bit. So yeah, you have to be very, very careful if you're going to buy any of those old Genghis Khan or Tokyo Blade things. If you see things being sold as white label copies, we're all conditioned to think white label means, ooh, test pressing, that's more rare, that should be more valuable. Not in this case. The white label copies, again, those are manufactured and put on the market during the 1990s, not back in 1983 when this was originally made. For Genghis Khan, you got to find those pale blue labels with the light blue font. And for the Tokyo Blade ones, you got to have the Blade record stickers on them. Okay, that took longer than I expected it to, but we'll soldier on. Uh, the material was strong. It was obvious the band would get picked up, and they did. And so they ended up making their debut album. Let me double check years here. Again, it's very easy to get a bit tangled up in this band's catalog. But the debut album, Tokyo Blade, would be released in 1983 as well. It has a very distinctive cover, um, which is this. Um, this copy is on Power Station, which was a label. They also put out a 7-inch by Tokyo Blade. It has a colorful picture sleeve. It's much easier to find. It shows up on eBay every month for like 20 bucks. Not a hard thing to come by. But yeah, here's the debut LP. Here's the band looking quintessentially new wave of British heavy metal, for sure. Um, I don't know why, but I always love the expression on this guy's face over here, the one wearing the British flag shirt. He looks like, Steve Harris slept in a gutter for a month and just woke up and is like, but he's still ready to rock. And I can dig that. But yeah, the album is quite good. It does what the bands does well. Highly energetic songs, plenty of melody, kind of thing that should be a big hit. Why wasn't it? 1983, it was a very crowded field, and a lot of attention was starting to go to things like Pyromania. Uh, with albums like that coming out dominating the global marketplace, it started to get harder and harder for bands like Def Leppard to break through. Iron Maiden is also already an established thing by now, moving from strength to strength, with their Bruce Dickinson albums. There's only so many bands that can be at the top. You know, bands, any music scene, it's a lot like a food chain in nature. You can only have one or two carnivores at the top of that food chain. You can't have like 17 different species at the top of the food chain. They would run out of things to eat, and then they would just have to cannibalize themselves, and your whole ecosystem collapses. You can only have so many huge, mega superstar bands at any given time. And the new wave of British heavy metal had already produced two of those. And really, at the time, you also had a couple of others. I mean, Saxon and Girl School were both doing incredibly well, still in '83. I can only say there's just not enough room left at the top for another band to quite break through, which is a real shame. This one, there are other pressings of this that are slightly different. But with the Power Station one, there's a insert for some merchandise stuff. This one here we have again, Tokyo Blade. This is the artwork that was used for that M single called Second Cut, the one that continues to taunt me on my want list, lo, these many, many years later. Anyone out there got a spare copy? Just saying, hit me up in the comments. But yeah, you can get t-shirts and all that cool stuff. One thing that's worth noting here, there's lots of good songs on here. Closer Sunrise in Tokyo is a great one. At the very end, and kind of like, as you're getting to the run out grooves on the vinyl, the band did what I can only describe as a quintessentially British thing. And you have one of these little outro clips of the band kind of goofing off in the studio. Lots of bands have done this over the years. Sometimes they're amusing, sometimes they're annoying. They're rarely a good idea. Most of the time, that just doesn't need to be there. Tokyo Blade decided that they would tack on about 30 seconds of them farting around with a piano singing in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Da, da. You know the song, and that's all I'm going to sing of it. So yeah, that is there if you let side B play all the way through to the end. That aside, pretty strong album. Enjoy it quite a bit. Um, Power Station labels, light blue. And, being on Power Station may also have been a little bit of a thing, not exactly, worldwide name in the music business, even in 1983. So maybe they just didn't get an offer from the right label. Now, I mentioned there are other pressings of this. I have a different pressing. This is the combat pressing. The front cover is pretty much the same, except notice that when it was released in the US on Combat, they gave the album the title of Midnight Rendezvous. Um, it's a little thing, just glancing at the front cover, you might not notice it. I noticed this pressing when I found it in a record store decades ago because the color scheme on the back is all different. Instead of a red background, with black emblems, it's got a black background with red emblems. When I saw that, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on, but I know my copy at home don't look like that. And so I bought this one, took them home, compared them. It's like, okay, yep, so some details changed here. As labels were wont to do back in the 80s, a lot of times they would change things a bit when they were licensing something from another territory. And it's not just the title and the color scheme that got a bit of a workover. Thank God they kept the picture because that would have been a deal breaker if they had cropped that guy out. Just sorry, not interested at that point. And again, just to be clear, this is one in the Combat Press, the old original green Combat label. But Combat also swapped out some tracks on this one. They pulled a few tracks off, rearranged things a little bit, um, but they ended up including some of the tracks from those early Tokyo Blade singles this time. So you get to hear like Midnight Rendezvous, Mean Streak, and Highway Passion, which are not included on the Power Station version of the album. So it's kind of like, this worked out well for me. I thought I was just buying it for a different cover variant, but you actually do get a relatively different track listing on both also. And if anything, the combat version, the track list here, is probably a little stronger than the Power Station version. Maybe it's just on the strength of, having those early songs that I like so much from the 7-inch material. But Professor Steele, you ask, was Combat smart enough to chop off that little piano ditty before we get to the run out grooves on side B? Oddly, they didn't crop it out and they actually altered it. They kept it and they changed this as well. Because this time, when they go into the little tinkly piano with the band singing in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, it's sped up. So it sounds like it's, was recorded and played at 45 RPMs, like an Alvin and the Chipmunks clip. So it's more like in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. And it's just like, you could have just left it off, or you could have just left it the way it was. But you actually decided to keep it and fart around with it and somehow make it worse. Uh, you know, if we had a time machine, everybody would like to have a time machine. And if I had a time machine, we all would want to do certain things. There's certain things we'd want to go back and change in our personal lives. There are certain historical events we might want to go back and alter to, kind of steer humanity onto a better course in the future, save the dinosaurs from the asteroid. I don't know. We've all got our list. I realize this is a very tiny thing, and I'm not claiming it's anywhere near the top of my list. But my time traveling list includes going back to the offices of Combat Records around 83, 84. I'll bet it was 84 by the time they pressed this one out. And asking him, like, hey fellas, before you send that acetate over to the printing press, can you explain to me why you've decided to speed up the joke tidbit at the end and keep it on there? I just would like to know what's going through your mind. I'm not going to try to make them take it off. I'm not going to alter the course of history so that nobody's Tokyo Blade copy has it anymore. I'm not going to shoot one of the record executives to keep it from happening and start a time paradox. I just want to know why. Why did you feel the need that you know what this is missing? It needs to be faster. Let's run it back and give it the old Alvin and the Chipmunks treatment. That's how we're going to include it on our press. These are the things that keep me awake at night, ladies and gentlemen. What can I say? I'm a sick little monkey. Anyway, it's a good album, regardless of which pressing of it you get. And, the band was doing okay. It's not like it was a total flop. Again, they didn't exactly take over the world, but, all right. You've hit the ground running. You've got a good album out. It's getting released in other parts of the world, even if it's a little bit altered. We're doing good here. It's time for that difficult sophomore album. And for the band, this would be in the form of Night of the Blade. I have this on vinyl too, but I pulled the CD press. This is an old high voltage pressing. High Voltage did really nice CD anthologies before it was cool to do CD anthologies of metal bands. Really good liner notes, lots of pictures, very complete track lists with tons of bonus stuff. If you ever find the High Voltage pressings of things that you want, I'd recommend picking them up if they're affordable. So yeah, second album, Night of the Blade. Some changes had happened here. The big one is that while the band was in the studio working on it, well, they decided they weren't so keen on their vocalist, Alan Marsh. I don't really get this. I've played several clips earlier. I think Marsh's voice was fine. Was he the next Bruce Dickinson or Rob Halford? No. Was he absolutely fine for what the band was doing? I kind of thought so, yeah. But anyway, the band decides they need someone different. Marsh is out, and a new vocalist named Vic Wright is brought in, and the material is re-recorded. This, of course, slows things down, kills a lot of momentum, and kind of, you're hitting the reset button right at the point when you need to be hitting the gas pedal. Um, Night of the Blade comes out with Vic Wright doing the vocals. It is not a bad album at all. I still enjoy a lot of the songs on it. It does show the band maybe moving towards a bit more, wanting to be a little more of a mainstream thing. It's still heavy enough, but again, lots of new wave of British heavy metal bands are getting kind of caught at this point where you're either going to have to make, Pyromania or Kill 'Em All. Well, most of those bands weren't able to make a Kill 'Em All, so it's like, well, okay, I guess we try to, make something more popular. But it is still a pretty good album. Let's play a clip from this one. Uh, may play a couple of clips from it actually, so you can get an idea of what Vic Wright sounds like with the band. This one will be a song called Unleash the Beast. All right, there you go. So yeah, Unleash the Beast. Still reasonably energetic, upbeat, not that far afield at all from what they sounded like. They're not, going, total wuss out, faster pussycat poison kind of material here whatsoever. Yeah, not a bad track at all. So like I said, there's still a lot of good ones on here. You can just tell, some of the tracks, yes, maybe they're drifting a little bit more towards trying to find something that will have a broader appeal. I always felt kind of bad that Alan Marsh, got the sack at that point in time. Wouldn't it be cool to use our time machine to go back and hear what those original tapes with Alan Marsh sounded like? We don't have to because High Voltage did that for us. Bless their hearts. High Voltage not only put out Night of the Blade with a ton of bonus tracks on it here, they also put out Night of the Blade the night before, which is the original set of recordings with Alan Marsh in the studio. Uh, and this is the kind of thing that made High Voltage a very cool record label. To my understanding, they're not around anymore, but yeah, they did some pretty cool stuff. Let's see what Unleash the Beast sounds like with Alan Marsh on vocals. So same song, and again, I may have to skip a couple of parts since some of these bands, the intro part is a little bit long. But yeah, here's Unleash the Beast, the unreleased version with Alan Marsh doing the vocals. I think he sounds great. I don't know what the problem was. Maybe there were other issues going on too, and band claims that his voice isn't quite right was just the official party line for some other issue. Alan drank all the drummer's beer or something. I don't know. I think he sounds absolutely fine on those tracks. Now, yeah, all the songs on here didn't necessarily translate onto, the final actually released version. So again, the track lists are a little different, which again makes it kind of interesting to check out and proves that it's not just the fact that I'm a sick little monkey that made me buy both copies. I am a sick little monkey. I don't deny it. I mean, how long have I been talking about Tokyo Blade now? We're not even quite to the end of this yet. But yeah, cool artifacts and really neat to hear what Alan Marsh sounded like on those songs. If you're wondering about the picture that I showed while the clip was playing, what the hell is happening over here in the picture behind the tray card? Mr. Ice, well, you see, after Night of the Blade, Tokyo Blade definitely sort of kept drifting into a little bit more of a more commercial and eventually kind of a little bit more of a sleazy vibe direction with their music. And this is kind of the point where I get off the Tokyo Blade trolley and just go for a nice walk over in the Salem's Witch Park instead. Um they still released a couple more albums, Black Hearts and Jaded Spades, which is nothing, if nothing else, is a pretty cool title for an album. But yeah, you had more lineup changes occur after Black Hearts. Some other guys went out. Guitarist John Wiggins would hook up with Paul Diano for the Battlezone project. They all kind of did a lot of different things. Andy Bolton was the one guy who kind of kept things going forward. And I might have said John Wiggins was on guitar. I might have been wrong about that. Doesn't matter. You can look it up if you need those exact details. But Andy Bolton kind of kept the band moving forward for a while longer. They eventually ended up by the late 80s releasing an album called No Remorse. And just to kind of show you how far afield they had gotten from the early days, I'll play one quick clip from No Remorse. By this point, even Vic Wright had left the band, and there's another vocalist doing this one. Here's a quick clip of a song from the No Remorse album. So yeah, if you have ever thought to yourself, what would Poison have sounded like if John Lord joined them and brought his Hammond organ with him? No Remorse by Tokyo Blade. Am I a horrible person if I say that I actually kind of like part of the album? I know I lose major heavy metal street cred points for that. Uh, it's better than anything Poison or Faster Pussycat did, as far as I'm concerned. So it's not at the bottom of the barrel. But yeah, it just shows the band really, went down that more kind of sleaze direction by the end of the 80s. The band, again, people were involved in different projects, some different names were used. You had the Mr. Ice thing that I showed a little bit earlier in one of the pictures. There would also occasionally be something that would pop up under the name Tokyo Blade. Andy Bolton did keep the name around, and they have been back together in recent years making albums again. And when I say back together, it's not just Andy Bolton, but actually a lot of the older, sort of pre-Black Hearts and Jaded Spades members are involved, including Alan Marsh, who had done vocals for some of their releases even in the 1990s. So they at least stayed on, decent terms with Alan. Even there may have been the awkward breakup period, but it looks like they got, back together, stayed in each other's orbit, and he has worked on more recent material with the band. As is usual for me, I don't know the more recent stuff the band has done. I think they had an album as recently as 2022. I know the last one was called Fury, because it looked kind of, interesting having, that lineup. It's not the full original lineup, but yeah, Fury from 2022. Let's check this out here. You've got, yes, Andy Bolton, of course, is still on guitars, but Steve Pierce is back on drums from the early days. Alan Marsh is back. And yes, actually, John Wiggins and Andy Wrighton. So here's a case where they almost really did get the If not the original lineup, definitely the old school lineup is operating together under the Tokyo Blade name once more. What does it sound like? That's a question for somebody else to answer because I have not checked it out. But I'm curious on this one, and I probably will give it a spin sometime. But maybe you can tell me what it sounds like in the comments down below because it's time to wrap this puppy up. What do you think of Tokyo Blade? Are there fans of some of those eras that I haven't covered? I skipped the mid 80s. Oh, excuse me. I kind of skipped the mid 80s stuff around Black Hearts and Jaded Spades. I'm not really familiar with much of the 90s stuff or any of the 21st century stuff. Again, there's a few songs included in the high voltage bonus tracks, but those only go up to, earliest 2000s at most. Is this Fury album good? Should I be ordering a copy of it? I see it around online. I just never have pulled the trigger for a copy. Um, should Tokyo Blade have made it? Are they really just a second tier band and I just like them too much and I'm tilting at a windmill trying to claim that they should have been up there with the Maidens and the Leopards of the new wave of British heavy metal? Leave a comment down below. Let folks know what you think. And yeah, if you know any other fun trivia facts about the band or anything, share those with others. There's always lots of cool stuff put in the comments on videos like this one. I appreciate folks taking the time to type those out and share their information and knowledge about these obscure bands with anybody who stops by and takes the time to read through the comments. Should always glance at the comments. I know YouTube comments in general have the reputation of being like a barn full of baby animals that a troll has set on fire and poured gasoline on, but people are actually tend to be really nice in the comments on my videos, which I appreciate. And yeah, there's always something to learn there. I learn a lot reading comments that folks put in there. So let's have at it. Homework. Tokyo Blade, comment below, due by midnight. Then we shall rendezvous. All right, I've had my fun. Everyone, until next time, take care. And as always, keep banging your head.